Welcome back to another architecture video. Today we're looking at the future of affordable housing. That's what we have right here. This really quite attractive looking building. It's 47 bachelor units and it's transitional housing. So it's affordable housing for people that are, maybe coming off the street or coming from sort of a bad environment into, maybe the first place in a while, something like that. And this is kind of meant to get them on their feet. And this is a prefab, as in prefabricated modular building, or at least it seems to be about half of that. So let's take a look and kind of get into this. It's a really nice looking building, right? We sort of covered that. They did talk about sort of the Scandinavian style. We'll look at a little bit at the materials and things like that. This is located, it's in Ontario. It's probably 2 hours-ish from Toronto. It's in a little town kind of up here. This is Toronto. Work your way up. So it's in kind of a rural country area. They obviously have a lot of space. It's a pretty big site. But they talk about the sort of exterior materials, the cladding, things like that, matching the rural environment of sort of farm buildings and stuff in that area. And it kind of makes sense. It's close to Lake Simcoe. There's lots of farms and farm space up there, agriculture, that kind of stuff. But what are we looking at here? So this is like I said, it's a 47 bachelor unit residential building. It's pretty big. It's like 38,000 square feet. So it's a good size. It is by Montgomery Sisam. I don't know how you say that, but they do some nice work. They're out of Toronto. So shout out to them. Maybe I'll link their website in the description below if you want to check them out. And it looks like they say this is prefab, and it could all be prefab, but certainly this section here is modular. It's a bunch of repeated units, and you can really start to see that, all these little units start to look the same, right? And they are the same. They're literally made in a factory. That's what prefabricated means, right? So they make these modular units in the factory, wherever that may be, ship them to site, and then kind of crane them into place. That said, it doesn't look like this end of the building is, maybe I'll undo that one. There we go. It doesn't look like this end of the building was done in the same way. It may have been prefabricated, in the same fashion in the factory and then put together on site, kind of like a little kit of parts like Lego or something like that. But it's certainly not as modular as these units down here. Like this is, I don't know how many in a row we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's about 9 per floor. On this side at least. Could be the same thing over on this side. And this doesn't have that, right? It doesn't have all those repeating units. So this is maybe a little more custom down here. I think this is kind of the services, the dining area, support places, things like that. So the more sort of public space, whereas down at this end is the more private residential spot. And here's a good image. You can see how these units are basically just repeated, right? They are literally the same thing stacked together like a bunch of blocks, like building blocks. And it does kind of have that Scandinavian vibe. Like the detailing on this is nice. I do like the material palette. It does kind of suit the neighborhood, and it does have that Scandinavian feel. It looks like this is cedar. This is either like a painted or a sort of a charred wood cladding. It's got the really steep sloped roof, which, it's functional, helps with snow and things like that, but there's not much of an overhang, which is a nice little Scandinavian feature. Same thing here, just kind of, again, looking at the materials, like simple. It's kind of, it is simple, and I do appreciate that. And these kinds of projects that are affordable or social housing, they generally need to be done on sort of a shoestring budget. There's not a lot of extra money necessarily for frills on these kinds of buildings. Sometimes they are bare bones, and I think this style lends itself to that. Like the detailing is very simple with just a regular residential gutter going all the way down. This is just like unfinished, or maybe it's unfinished cedar. Maybe it's got some kind of a stain on it or something like that, or maybe this could be the unfinished. This could be just a black stain. Could be the exact same material. Probably is, actually. Just cedar cladded throughout, and then they basically just paint the dark stuff to give it a little bit of contrast and some variation. Very simple little courtyard. Like this is almost like something you'd see in someone's backyard. It's kind of like a little pergola, unfinished. Again, simple. Nothing crazy going on. No balconies. That's a big one. definitely save some money on that. And it's probably fine on this project because there's clearly a lot of outdoor space. You don't need a private balcony out here. You have lots of outdoor space. And once this vegetation really comes in, like these trees and stuff, once that fills in, like that'll be a beautiful little area. Quick look at the inside. Again, we're talking simple, right? This is pretty bare bones. This almost looks like a school cafeteria or something like that, maybe a hospital cafeteria. You have the exposed ductwork, which is, honestly, I don't mind the look of that. It's got that industrial sort of feel, and it works well in a space like this when you have the double height and you don't want to have it way up at the ceiling necessarily. You want it, 12 feet off the ground so that it can really affect the environment that's closer to the people as opposed to this space up here. And you paint it white, it sort of disappears. Honestly, I don't mind it. It's fine. It's pretty simple. It's interesting that you can see the roof joists up here without insulation in there, so there's maybe some kind of an inverted roof or something going on above that. Tough to say exactly what that detailing looks like, but again, simple insides, painted white, a couple strategic windows up in the corners. I'm going to erase some of this gibberish. You got a window up here, It's nice and bright. Very open. It's very inviting. Like, it's a pretty warm, inviting space, especially with just a couple of wood elements. The chairs are nice. Just gives it a little bit of warmth. If it didn't have that touch of wood, I think it could be a bit stark. Might feel like a hospital. And this is, I mentioned this earlier. They're talking about the material palette, how it was. It takes inspiration from the vernacular architecture of the rural environment, and this was taken directly off the architect's website, and it is definitely architecture speak. An architect definitely wrote that because and I get it though. What they're trying to say is, hey, we looked at the local environment, the buildings that are already in that area. We already sort of showed that. We're out in the country, out here. There's lots of farms, lots of fields. And this is what a lot of those agricultural buildings are made of. They do have that corrugated steel roof. A lot of them have that on the side as well. You see that on silos and things. Board and batten with cedar, very common with sheds. Again, barns, things like that. Tongue and groove, again, sheds and barns. And then this, what do they call that? Landscaping? Native species landscaping, sure. Looks like it's like wheat or something, but whatever. I mean, you put some trees in there, some local stuff. It's going to do well. It's going to fill in and add a little bit of green space. And, they do say it's sort of Scandinavian inspired. And if you just looked at this photo, honestly, yeah, you could maybe trick me. This could be in Finland or Sweden or something. It definitely has that feel. You have some ferns going on down here. This really simple cladding, which I quite like. And I'd be curious to see the detailing of this. This photo doesn't show much, but I do like... It's kind of a transition between the two different types of materials. If we look out here, the exterior is kind of dominated by... Maybe this is a good photo. It's kind of dominated by the black cedar, or the black stained cedar, and the sort of untreated plain cedar. And we have a sort of a transition, it looks like, maybe between the two. Or maybe it's all like this, actually, because this is the same sort of detailing. It looks like it's just all cedar along here, but I think just because we're seeing at an angle, I think it actually does sort of match this, where it have these slats with all the spaces in between. And again, I'd be curious to see that detail, because it's super simple. It's just, looks like it's probably screwed on. You can see the whole line of screws there, every, whatever that is, foot or 2 feet. But it's not really doing much functionally, because it's not really blocking the rain or anything. So I don't know. There's some kind of a rain screen system probably in behind that. So I'm curious what that black layer is in behind all that cedar. I'd love to see what that detail looks like. But the cedar on the front, it's more aesthetic, and I do really like it. It just really softens the building. It might start to warp and weather a little bit, and you can actually see that a little bit already. Maybe it's some of these joints, some of these joints over time where you have these slats that are lining up, those might start to bend and warp, but pretty easy to replace too. So it's low maintenance from that perspective. And just another shot of the exterior, the materials, and just the simple detailing. It's a really nice outdoor space, but we have minimal gutters, kind of all the way around. Actually, every eave is kind of non-existent. There's very little, which sometimes presents a bit of a challenge from like a water and moisture perspective, but it looks nice. So hopefully they did a nice job detailing it and it stays dry inside. And this is kind of the most interesting part. So this is the actual module, right? Because we got, I don't know how many it is. I guess it's 47. I don't know exactly how it's laid out. I don't see a floor plan on the website for this project, but so each one of these little modules, like this one for instance, they're all repeated. We talked about that, and this is what they look like, right? So these things get built in a factory. I don't know what the dimensions of this are. It's probably, that washroom's probably like 6 feet. This whole thing might be like 12 feet wide. Like from here to here, that could be 12 feet. Could be more, could be less, something like that. This one's maybe a little tougher to judge. If that's 12, that's maybe 30-ish, 30 feet, something like that. I don't know. That's a decent enough size, especially the way they're showing it. They only have one little. I'm just gonna go to the smaller pen here. There we go. They only have one. Whoops. They only have one little bed, just tucked into the corner over here, looking kind of lonely. But they are bachelor suites, so I mean, they are meant for a single person. And we can talk about the drawbacks of that a little bit. Like if the sort of downside with a project like this, and you have 47 of these little individual units, is you're not going to have any families moving in. There's not going to be any kids, most likely. No couples, things like that. Maybe you could have a couple, I guess. But generally, this is meant for single people, right? So the downside of that is, maybe you have 47 single people in a building. Maybe that can get a bit rowdy depending on the crowd. And it's not as diverse as a project that has some 2 bedrooms, some 3 bedrooms. Then you have some families, you have some kids, and it just tempers the population in the building a little bit. But this can be a very specific crowd potentially. But I mean, you need housing, and this is one way to do it. And it's a simple way to do it with these modules. And like I said, there's a ton of space. You have one little bed, and I don't know, if anything, like there's a lot of wasted space in there. I don't know what you would put in there. They're not showing a couch or anything, but like it's pretty functional. You come in, you do have a closet, which is nice. Single toilet and a shower, which is kind of a key consideration. Like I said, it's probably just one person living in here. Probably no pets or anything either. You don't really need a tub, so therefore you can get away with just the shower, which is a huge space savings if you don't have a massive tub. And then looks like another little closet in here. So the bathroom, quite functional, easy. There's a couple spaces here on the outside. I'll talk about those in a minute. Because then you're coming in this way. I guess I should say this is the hall, if that wasn't obvious already. Whoops. And delete that one. And so you're coming in from the hallway. Add an extra L. Pretty functional little kitchen. It looks like it's a hot plate right here instead of a stove. So I mean, you guess you have a sink, you have a hot plate, you have probably a microwave, and that's it. So you don't have a stove or anything. That might be sort of a safety consideration with a project like this. But that's it. I mean, you can do some damage with a hot plate, so don't need that. This is interesting because that's the closet, which I don't know why. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it doesn't have a door on it. And you can see it a little better on this axial perspective here, and this axo, I should say. But there's just a lot of wasted space out here. Yeah, sure, you'd have a table. It could be a bigger table. It probably would make sense. I don't know. I guess it's a dresser or something here. Another dresser, a nightstand there. But man, there is a ton of wasted space. It looks like this is kind of the little PTAC unit. I would say this is like the heating and cooling for the unit, which is like one of those little wall-mounted, they're probably about 3 feet long and maybe 10 inches tall or something like that, and they basically go through the wall and they kind of act as a heat pump. They can be pretty efficient, generally electric though, which they can get pricey and definitely damaged and stuff too, but is what it is. And I think that's important when it's a modular project like this, because you're not going to have a bunch of pipes, and I shouldn't say that. You will have pipes, but you don't want to have a central boiler or a sort of a central mechanical room that's handling all these, and you have ductwork running throughout these buildings, because the nice thing with these modular units is you can pick this up with a crane. You know, it's built in the factory, comes in on a truck, a crane comes over, picks it up, and just drops it right in place, and you don't have to worry about running ductwork through all these things. Now, I did mention pipes, and obviously you do need water, so there is going to be some piping and sanitary and stuff running through this. But it was smart how they did it, because the bathrooms and everything are the bathrooms in the kitchen, which is where your plumbing is, right, for your toilet, your sink, your shower, and then your kitchen sink. It's all close to the hallway. So then, you know, if you imagine this building in plan, you have, you know, what do we say? We have 9 of these units. Maybe I can just copy these. So that's your, actually, maybe I'll draw a little more detail on this one first. You're coming in here. This is your doorway. This is kind of your washroom, and this is your kitchen. So your plumbing is here and here. So that's one unit. And you can imagine you have a whole bunch of these in a row. I won't draw them all out, but it kind of gives you an idea. All your plumbing and stuff, and actually I should do, you'd have the same kind of thing mirrored most likely on the other side. So you have a whole other set. We'll spin that one around. Can we spin it? Oh, we can spin it. And there's your corridor in the middle. There we go. So this is your hallway in here. People are running back and forth. Hopefully not running back and forth. You know what I mean? That's where people are walking. And all your plumbing, I should switch colors here. So all your plumbing is essentially focused in this space here. So you're not having to run, there'd be some kind of central line, whatever, under the floor, something like this, and then you're coming off of it most likely. Actually, no, I take that back. You're probably not doing that. Because it's probably just run vertically. But what I was thinking was you're not running, you know, from the hallway all the way down here. Like, you're keeping that distance short. As far as you're getting is, if you're going from the common space, you're coming into the kitchen with, you know, your plumbing, your sanitary. You don't have to go, you know, from here to here. You don't need any piping. And then you just have your little heating and cooling unit, which isn't connected to anything else. Electricity, and that's about it. And it just does your heating and cooling, so it doesn't need to be connected to anything back here. So you're saving yourself a lot of money and materials just by keeping things efficient close to the hallway. And the reason I said they're probably running the pipes and stuff vertically as opposed to down the hallway is, if you zoom into this axo here, change colors, go back to red, you can see there's little chase spaces. There's one right here. Looks like one right there as well. And that's right adjacent to the hallway. And if you look at it on plan, so that's this one and this one. And that's most likely where your water pipes, your sewage pipes, that stuff's running straight up and down, because you have these units. You know, if you imagine this is one floor, well, you have another floor stacked directly on top. So it's got the exact same layout. You can just run your pipes straight up. There's no zigging or zagging. It makes it super efficient. And everything is right there. And I say that because this is clearly a chase space here. This one, I'm a little more unsure, because it has this door here. It could be an electrical closet. It's probably not mechanical, unless... Actually, I shouldn't say that. It could be mechanical because you maybe do have some kind of central mechanical for dealing with the hallway, so that it's not freezing cold in winter. So maybe there is some sort of low volume mechanical equipment that is running through there, but it could definitely be electrical and stuff too. So anyway, I digress as we get into the details. Anything else I wanted to talk about? I mean, shout out to Montgomery Sisam. It's a quite a beautiful building. As far as like affordable housing goes, sometimes that stuff is just hideous and it's not pleasant. People don't want them in their neighborhoods. People don't want to live in them. But if you make them nice like this, like, people would be lucky to be moving into a place like this, right? Like, it's a beautiful looking building. I love the proportions. Like, looks like there's essentially 2 buildings. You have one down at this end, and then the more residential area down at this end. It's connected with a lower volume in the middle, which is could be administration, you know, things like that. You sort of have the more public end, the more private end, and it is, you know, it's a pretty handsome looking building. I'm a fan. So this could be the future of affordable housing and social housing, because it's modular, which is very efficient. That said, it's efficient in terms of like materials and cost and labor, putting things together, but it is temporary, right? So that's kind of the drawback, is I don't know what the lifespan of this building would be. Hopefully it's at least 30 years, something like that. But buildings like this typically are on a lease of some sort for like 30, 40, 50 years. And after that, they can be removed. And each one of these modules, as easy as they put them in, they just take them right back out. And they do say, oh, that's modular and can be reused. But 30 years of use and abuse on some of these units, a lot of the time, you're not going to end up reusing it. And if you are, like, there's not much left. Maybe you get the frame, but you're gutting it at that point. So they go up quickly. They're useful in a housing crisis, things like that. If you need affordable housing fast, it's great. But 30 or 40 years down the line, when people are reassessing these buildings and saying, hey, is this worth keeping, it might be falling apart by that point. It's tough to say. It's impossible to tell just by looking at the photos, but it kind of comes down to how well it was designed and built, and how hard the residents are on how hard they treat it or take care of it, right? So anyway, I think that was a kind of a fun project. I wanted to bring it up because I think this kind of stuff really is the future of affordable housing. So again, shout out to Montgomery Sisam. Check them out. I'll link them down below, and keep up the great work. We'll probably see a lot more of this kind of stuff in the future. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Bye for now.